The content presented in this podcast and YouTube show is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the guidance of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding your health or a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard or seen on this show. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or emergency services immediately. The host, guests, and producers of this show are not responsible for any adverse effects resulting from your use of or reliance on any information presented.
Andrea, can you hear us?
Many years ago, I died for 26 seconds. There are so many people in this world that have experienced life events that have led to their sole purpose. Wake Up Your Soul with Andrea will bring you these significant life events that demonstrate how to use those moments for guidance and life purpose. These are our stories. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Wake Up Your Soul with Andrea Lynn. This week's guest has a wild story, and I don't really know where to begin with it other than I'm just going to tell you when you have these moments in life that just keep popping up over and over again, there's a reason for it. And our guest is going to be able to talk to that point because in her life, she has had death come up many times in many different ways. And so there comes a point where you have to reflect and figure out, why does this keep surfacing? So let's go ahead and welcome Elaine to hear her story.
Hello.
Welcome. Hi.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Let's just go right back to the beginning of your childhood.
I came to Canada, where I live now, when I was 3. And I didn't even understand until about 2 years ago that I have what's known as suicidal ideation.
Mhm.
Whenever something happened, whether I burnt my toast or I dropped something in my mind would say, well, you could always just die. And being a child, I didn't know everybody didn't think like that.
Mhm.
But there were things you learn as a child that you don't talk about.
Right.
And so I kept it quiet. 5 years of age, I saw the movie Pollyanna. And that was the saving grace because, one, I love crystals and prisms. The Glad game spoke to me on such a visceral level.
Can you talk about Pollyanna for a second? Just because I think some listeners are going to be like, what is that?
Absolutely. It was a Disney movie, and a young girl was sent by her father to her aunt because her mom died, and I guess he couldn't look after her. The aunt was filthy rich and kind of ran this town, and Pollyanna wasn't used to that and was not used to having to be tidy and not, run and jump and climb trees and what have you. Through the movie, she makes friends with everyone in her town. Her aunt is not a friendly person, and she gets caught at the end wanting to go to a fair. She was part of the fair, and she was supposed to sing, and her aunt wasn't going to let her go. She ended up falling out of a tree and becoming paralyzed. And even then, she made something through the Glad game about being paralyzed after a bit of not being happy.
Mhm.
Of course, it's a Disney film, so everything turned out in the end, and her aunt got nicer. And there was an old gentleman she had gone and befriended who had all these prisms all over his house and put them in the windows so that there were rainbows all through his house.
Okay. It's really interesting when you're talking about the suicidal ideation because I think a lot of people don't even realize that's something that they're doing.
Yeah.
And, like, there's just this immediate thought of like, okay, this is hard. Let me just bounce. Like, how do I get out of this?
Absolutely. And I don't know about you, but I was a real overachiever in school.
Okay.
So if I didn't get 100%, And that was it. The world was ending.
Yeah.
Like, how can this be? And it's very tumultuous. There was a lot of chaos anyway. We brought my aunt to Canada, my aunt, my grandmother, and she had very serious health issues.
Mhm.
So as a child, life was incredibly chaotic. When the phone rang, it usually meant we had to travel immediately.
Okay.
When I was in high school, I was 16. I had been sent to a parochial school, so all girls convent. And because of that, my parents allowed me to be out later on the weekend because my friends through school lived downtown.
Okay.
One of those friends, Andrea, unfortunately took her life on New Year's Eve, 1971, 72. And that evening I was babysitting and she was looking after her aunt and uncle. And I picked up the phone at 11 o'clock to call her and realized I didn't want her to get in trouble because we were going to a concert the next night. It was Alice Cooper. And I thought, oh God, I don't want to get her in trouble and then she can't go. So I slammed down the phone. That haunted me for the next 4 years because I found out at the concert. We didn't have pagers, we didn't have cell
No.
phones. Things took a lot longer back then.
Mhm.
I can honestly say I did not handle this well.
Right.
I didn't know what to do with it.
I'm curious, so did you have any idea that she was in that mental place?
Absolutely not. And the five of us to this day, we just cannot fathom what on earth happened.
Yeah.
But what also happened, and I didn't realize why I was so desperate to get away from my feelings, but this made the ideation real.
Mhm.
I now knew exactly what it was that I
Mhm.
kept thinking I was going to do.
Right.
And it
There's a
took a lot of,
difference. Yeah,
yeah,
there's a difference in the thought and then really seeing and understanding the outcome.
yeah, because as a child, the thoughts you may not know, it's not fully formed. It's just there. And I mean, it was only a few years ago that we unraveled all this. When Andrea died that next New Year's Eve, it just absolutely annihilated my world. I got into drink, which I don't like,
Mhm.
and drugs, which I couldn't even tell you what I was taking. I just wanted to be numb.
Yeah.
And
It's understandable. That's a lot of pain for somebody of your age to be experiencing and having no coping mechanisms.
absolutely, but most nights after Andrea died, I would say probably 4 out of 7 days of the week, you could find me in the cemetery.
Yeah.
I was looking for an answer, something. Like, why did this happen? And what made it worse was some of our friends moved on, and I didn't understand that. I felt like they were betraying Andrea.
Mhm.
About 4 months after she died, my parents took me home to Scotland for 6 weeks because they didn't know what to do with me. I was a shell of who I'd been. I didn't talk. I was just totally out of it. They had no idea just
Did
how out of it I was.
did they take you to a therapist or psychologist? Anybody?
Back then, no. Okay, this is we're talking
I mean,
1972. Yeah,
yeah.
no. No,
Yeah.
my father was in the Air Force, my mother worked for the government. They weren't even sure what was going on,
Mhm.
and I'm a damn good at it, okay?
Hollywood missed out.
Yeah, exactly. So, trying to kinda put on a show for them that I wasn't as broken as I was,
Mhm.
I wanted to keep them comfortable.
Mm.
But they
Okay.
took me home, and for me, going home to Scotland just meant I had a whole bunch of new friends that I could get together with and drink and do drugs. New drink, new drugs, new bands.
Yeah.
It was something to take my mind off because I couldn't get to the cemetery.
Yeah. But yeah, a new location isn't gonna help you.
No,
You have
no.
to work through the mental thoughts that you're having, and
Ab
it goes with that saying, "Misery loves company," and it's true, and people that are miserable, they try real hard to bring people in. But people that are happy, they're walking in their own path and they don't really care. You do you is kind of how they feel. And so they aren't necessarily trying to bring people along, which is really interesting. And kind of the whole point of this show. Like I want people to make that shift instead of joining the misery loves company party. Like let's vibe up and everybody join up on this.
That's a really, really good point. And there is, okay, it's a little woo-woo, but there is psychology behind it.
I love woo woo.
Great. Okay, if you're in the conference room, you get called to a meeting and everybody's there, the bosses are there, and you walk in and one person is in a bad mood. Somebody peed in their cornflakes or their wife had a fight with them, whatever. They're just not happy.
Yeah.
Within 5 minutes, the tone of that whole room
Mhm.
will be less uplifted.
Okay.
Unless you walk into the room totally upbeat and just project your energy, your vibration, you can change the mood of that room.
I can
I
picture that, but it's gonna have to be extra high, right? Like, if you have that one person,
absolutely,
yeah, you gotta
absolutely.
walk in and be that woo person that's like,
It has to be intentional
yeah, and people kinda
for
snap
you to
out of it,
walk
like,
in.
all right, like
Yeah,
I often talk about as an example of just that energy and that frequency of you walk into a funeral and it's like, you could probably walk me in I shouldn't say probably, you could. You could walk me into a funeral blindfolded and be like, "Where are you?" And I would be like, "I don't know, but it feels really sad in here." You can just feel the energy. It seeps out of us. And the even more strange example I use to explain to people is women that get in sync with their cycles. That happens
yeah,
without a spoken word. And there's this energy and there's a frequency that our bodies hold. And sometimes I think that's hard for people to understand and believe, but it's very, very true.
when I had my accident,
Yeah, so okay, so let's just circle back for everybody. So 16, your friend passes away, you go to Scotland for a period of time, and then eventually you move back to Canada, I'm assuming, because then here we are back at this next point.
I was only gone for less than 2 months,
Okay.
and we came back, but I decided, I guess, life was gonna be on a fast path after that. I was married at 17. Just before my 18th birthday, I had a little girl. A year later, she had a sister. Unfortunately, Shannon died the day she was born, which did not help my mental state.
No.
All of these things just kind of piled on. The
Let's
following,
talk about that though for a minute. I think there's a lot of I was gonna say women, but men too. I know there's men too that have watched their daughter or their son not make it. And I think that is one of the hardest things that we can go through in life
yeah,
because that's just a little tiny soul that never had a chance, it feels like. And how do we deal with that?
the unfortunate thing back then, you didn't.
Yeah.
You weren't to talk about it. You weren't to talk to other people.
Mhm.
Everything was kind of swept under the rug.
Mm.
And I mean, that's no way to be. But Bob Shannon died in April 18th. And I was 19 years of age. And somehow, for some reason, I felt I needed to do everything. I needed to talk to the funeral director. I needed to make arrangements. I needed to do all those things. And in all honesty, we now know mentally I was about 12.
Mhm.
I reverted to being 12 years old before all this stuff got bad
Mhm.
and just thought I could stay there, not realizing that I wasn't maturing, I wasn't learning stuff. A 12-year-old got married, basically, and had a child and then lost a child. And the following year, in 1976, it was March. I was 20 years old and I was 6.5 months pregnant. We were excited because We were told that this would make things feel better by the doctor. Nobody wanted to talk about Shannon. And so I just suppressed that because that's what we did back then.
Okay.
I learned how important it was to just suppress stuff. Because
So Shannon was, I don't want to ruin the next part of the story, but so are you now going to go into the miscarriage?
Yeah.
Okay. So you lost two.
Yeah. So Shannon was born and died.
So she was born at 9 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, sorry, 7.5 months, but she was alive. She was born
Okay.
alive. She
Okay.
died much later that day.
Okay. Okay.
When I had the accident, and I'm going to make the accident quick because you don't need all the gory details. I was crushed between three cars on a highway at 2 a.m. I had gone out to do a favor for a friend who was picked up by the police for drinking and driving. When my car wouldn't start, a policeman was supposed to be helping us, but we couldn't get off the road because the snowbanks were too high.
Mm.
On that highway where the car was stopped, it was pitch black. There weren't really any overhead lights. The policeman went to get booster cables, and when he came back, he told me he didn't know how to use them.
Mm-hmm.
So I got between the car on the roadside. I was almost in the second lane.
Mm-hmm.
He was in that first lane, and I happened to turn my head and realized we were literally in front of Andrea's grave.
Mm.
It was just a
No.
split second. Yeah, yeah. And a young man came around the curve in the highway. He didn't have a chance. He did not see my car.
Yeah.
He was doing 55 miles an hour, and his car went through my Mustang, which went through me and hit the police car. The policeman, who was 6 feet tall, I'm 5'2", barely. I didn't see the lights hit the curb. He drove into the snowbank and saved himself. When the cars pulled apart, sadly, the engine of my Mustang took half my left leg vertically from the calf up. And I didn't know that at the time. I just knew that it felt like I had the worst blister in the world. And I went flying through the air. And before I left the house, because it was so cold, it was like minus 25 or minus 30. Because it was so cold, I put on this giant fur coat, and it had a hood. I think it was a wolf. A friend had given it to me for over the pregnancy. I needed something warm.
Mm-hmm.
And as I flew through the air, it was suddenly like someone was holding my head.
Mm.
And I swear Andrea saved my life because my head should have split like a melon. I ended up on my back, facing the opposite direction, 2 lanes over on the highway.
This is not the first time I've heard this story. Like your story, yes, but as so many people that survive these wild accidents will have the same. It's a friend, it's an angel, it's somebody where they felt so not alone in that moment. It's like one of the most beautiful things to hear.
It really was because, well, for one, it was terrifying.
Yeah.
My legs were broken in so many places. My left leg, which is the one that lost half of it, but my foot was on my shoulder. I had thrown on clogs when I left the house because I figured I wasn't going to be gone long. I was just going to pick somebody up and drive home. And my clogs went off up the highway.
Oh my God.
The young man who hit my car, he had the presence of mind, unlike the policeman. He went up the road to the restaurant and woke the people because their house was attached,
Okay.
and woke them so they could call an ambulance. See, back then in 1976, ambulances were just driven by ambulance drivers. There were no paramedics.
Okay.
And when the ambulance finally got there, I was starting to have frostbite on 2 of my toes. The good news is my femoral artery was ice. My leg had just gone to ice, so it had slowed down the bleeding.
I was wondering. Yeah.
Yeah. And the young man had put, I guess, a tourniquet or something on that part of my leg. The part of why I'm still alive.
Mhm.
But I know the ambulance drivers had to use 2x4s to try and bring my leg back so that they could get me on a gurney. They didn't think at that point that I was even going to make the hospital.
Right.
But this lady appeared from God knows where. Okay. There were a couple of trucks. This particular highway is a commercial truck route,
Mhm.
and the trucks were coming. It was now, I guess, closer to 3 o'clock in the morning. And the young guy and whoever else had stopped basically made a human barricade so nobody would hit me again.
Wow.
And two big, like, dump trucks parked on either side of those lanes so nobody could hit me,
Mhm.
which was incredible. I found out about that much, much later. But this lady came and my arm was stuck up in the air, like straight up in the air. I couldn't figure out what was going on. I kept asking about the car because my husband and I really liked that car. It's like, is the car okay? And people kept putting the hood up to my face so I couldn't see.
You're like, car's fine, honey.
Yeah, car's fine. The car's about 5 feet long. Yeah. And this lady kept saying, "Oh, you're going to be fine," but she's holding my hand, the one up in the air. I guess I was really rude and swore at her, told her to see if you go. I can remember the person who was in my car, the person I had gone to pick up,
Yeah.
said, "Oh, Elaine, don't swear." And I kept thinking, this is crazy. What is why is he telling me not to swear? And it seemed I kept saying, "Would someone just punch me and knock me out, please?" But I kept going in and out of consciousness.
Okay.
When they got me to the hospital, I don't really know what order things happened in because they didn't tell me anything for a few days.
Mhm.
My arm the dislocation was fixed and affixed to my body. I had fractured my skull. I had massive internal damages and had to have a whole bunch of different surgery. I had what they call debridements and plastic surgery every week for a couple of months to get the spot ready. I didn't know for 5 weeks that I had lost part of my leg.
Okay.
So in the hospital, they didn't do a lot with therapists or coaches or anything like that back then.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
the first week, I was told that they had to take the baby and left to deal with that. Second week, I was told that my skull was fractured. The third week, they told me about my shoulder, how it would be pinned to my body for the next 5 weeks. Both my legs were in cast, but the left leg, they had cut like I guess, a big window and they opened it, but they never opened it when I was sitting up. They made a habit of stretching me flat on the bed, and then they would come every day and they had to do this twice a day.
Mhm.
And the worst part was there was this smell,
Oh.
and I couldn't identify it then,
Mhm.
but my leg was dying all around where the big hole was, and I didn't know that. The end of the third week, this man breezed into my room and said, "Alrighty, well, I just want you to know you will not be Betty Grable, but that's okay." I said, "Okay." I had no intentions of insuring my legs. My father liked Betty Grable. She was an actress who insured her legs for $1 million. So I kind of understood what he said, but didn't really put
Yeah.
it together. I had met him once before. I had a little bike accident and had to have my leg sewed up.
Uh-huh.
So he looked a little familiar, but that had been a few years before.
So was he saying you can't insure your legs because you're not going to have your legs? I mean, you got to keep one, but
Yeah, I was already missing a big hunk of my leg,
yeah.
and he was going to have to do a lot of plastic surgery.
Okay.
My father has since suggested, and rightly so, that I should tell people I got bit by a shark because it's a much better story. We have a very bent sense of humor in our family,
Yeah.
but I really think that's what got me through an awful lot of this.
Mhm. Okay, well, I want to ask, when you went through this and after the fact, did you, just because this is such a norm for people when they go through hardship, to place blame where it's not really meant to be placed? And so when you went through that, did you place blame on your friend that called you and asked for the ride?
No, funny enough, I did not.
Okay.
Not on him and not on the young man that hit my car.
Okay.
I went to court for him
Mm-hmm.
because he couldn't see my car.
Mm-hmm.
I placed the blame squarely on the cop who
Mm-hmm.
didn't do what he should have done, who
Yeah.
put me in harm's way,
Mm-hmm.
who didn't even call the ambulance.
Yeah.
It was a lot of blame. More than that, I became an absolute bitch on wheels. There's no other way to put it. There's no nice way to put it. I was nasty. Now, I now understand pain changes you. It changes you a lot.
Mm-hmm.
When you live in pain 24/7, there's very little of you left. And they started giving me cortisone shots in my legs. But then they had to take both my kneecaps. They took all the cartilage in both legs. I went for all these debridements, and then eventually they did skin grafts.
Mm-hmm.
That's not fun. Uh, I've had some bizarre surgeries, and we'll talk about them. The worst thing is a skin graft, as far as I'm for sheer, like, think of a big blister.
Yeah, I can imagine.
That kind of pain ramped up a million times.
Much larger. Yeah.
Yeah. But over the next 5 years, I was so busy trying to lash out before people said anything to me. Part of it because I had not been one who was full of self confidence or anything before that. I thought I was big blue eyes and long, long legs for my big 5'2". Now you've taken my legs. And it was the fifth week in hospital when the nurse got called away as she undid the cast before she laid me flat.
Mm-hmm.
And when she left the room, I tore off the cast where it opened.
Mm.
I don't remember anything for 2 days.
Wow.
I actually got so delirious. I spiked a fever. I didn't know how to process that information. So,
That's how powerful the mind is, though, and how sometimes not knowing some stuff is just better for you. I
that's
know.
so true. It really is.
Yeah. I was talking about something similar recently with my sister and her husband, just talking about my grandfather and how he had some shoulder pain for a long time. And finally, they figured out that it was cancer in his bones, but then it was everywhere. And they told him, You're going to be gone in a few months." And it just seemed like, I don't know, I didn't write it down, but it seemed like as soon as they told him that, he just stopped living and he just sat in his chair and was just like ready to die. And I can't help but wonder, had his mind not known, how
Yeah.
much longer would he really have gone? The mind is a powerful, fascinating thing.
We are the captains of these ships.
Mm-hmm.
We can do anything
Yeah.
if you are committed. If you really, really want something, I now know that I can do that. I wanted not to get bogged down in the accident because the next 5 years was just surgery, surgery, surgery.
Mm-hmm.
One funny thing, The cast on my right leg was from my toes to my hip,
Mhm.
and a friend was getting married. I was bound and determined. Not only was I going to the wedding, I was going to dance.
Okay.
Only had one cast on. I thought I could kind of limp around. So I took my wedge shoes to the casting room, and Red, who was the guy who did all the cast, he said, "Are you sure? Like, these are really high." "I know that. Just make it so it matches my leg when I'm standing on that shoe." He said, "But Elaine, you know what? I'm not going to argue with you. I'll see you next week when you call me." "I'm not calling you. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine." I really wasn't thinking, because that meant I had to wear those shoes for the next 8 weeks. Big 6-inch platforms. It's tiring enough on crutches
Yeah.
without having to maneuver some big shoe as well.
Ab
Under all of it, there was always our family sense of humor.
Mhm.
I believe, and thank God I believed even then, you have to be able to laugh at yourself.
Mhm.
And a lot of times the striking out, it was part of, I had taken on the mantle of victim.
Mhm.
And, that's no way to go.
No.
But at the time, as they say, you can't see the label from inside the jar. And I definitely did not see the label. I broke up my marriage because of this, because I couldn't accept what was left of my leg.
Mhm.
He was fine. He's a good man. He's a good person. In the next 5 years, I actually remarried. And in 1982, after much trouble because of the way I'd been hit, all of my organs inside were what they call retroverted. And so it made it very hard for me to stay pregnant.
Okay.
And it made it hard for a lot of things. I kept having different surgeries. I have no gallbladder. I lost part of my bowel, and more plastic surgery, and then my legs. In 1982, my son Ryan was born, and I was thrilled. But by then, I had spent 5 years now getting cortisone shots in my legs every month. It's, I say monthly shots, but they were actually every week. Went on for 5 years. And then weird things started happening. I was finding, like, a little bit of my tooth would break off at the gum line. And I walked the dog, and all of a sudden I broke my wrist. We had Yorkies. They're not the biggest dogs in the world.
No.
So it just seemed very odd. I tripped on the stair and fell, I don't know, 18 inches. I broke 2 ribs. It just, people kept thinking, "Hey, this is weird." My husband said, "You got to make sure you tell people I didn't do that. I'm not doing this." I don't know what's going on. That's so bizarre. Anyway, I happened to see a show because I had put on so much weight. I absolutely hated me. I did my makeup in a mirror that was no bigger than this. Okay, a little purse mirror.
Okay. Yeah.
There were no mirrors in our house.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, I refused. It was making me angrier and angrier. And in there were a number of attempts
Okay.
to leave.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go into those
Yeah.
because it's just something that I live with. And again, I'm a good actress, so sometimes I got away with it. They would always be brought back at the last minute, or Andrea would be in my ear saying, "You hated it when I did it. You know what it feels like to
Mhm.
be left behind. Do you really want to do that?"
Mhm.
And so um, I do a podcast called Suicide and Forgiveness.
Mhm.
And that is because it's my gift to Andrea, because she gave me the best, worst gift you could ever give somebody.
Yeah. Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes it's really hard to understand and see why things have happened
Yeah.
the way they are, but I really do believe every person on this planet has a purpose, and we all have this interconnection with each other, and it's just this snowball effect of what she did to you causes you to do something for this person, and it just snowballs into hopefully greatness.
Exactly. And I couldn't live with myself. I saw an Oprah show and they were talking about a vertical banded gastroplasty. So I looked it up, I researched it. By that I mean I went to the library because we didn't have internet.
No Google.
It was a lot harder back then. And I found out there was in fact one doctor in our and so I was bound and determined, fought with the family. And I've said to you before, but God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, will confirm for you what you want, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent.
Mhm.
I was hell bent on having this surgery. So on a Sunday, our whole family had gone for brunch, and I had gone into the washroom at the restaurant, and this lady came out of a stall and looked at me in the mirror, and she said, "Oh my God, you're so beautiful. Why are you fat?"
Ugh. I cannot even fathom, like, who says that? I just can't imagine. Why would anyone think that's okay to say to somebody?
And for me, it was like the light went on. Ah, ah. And this, as I said, was Sunday. The very next morning, I called my doctor and demanded a referral. I got the referral. I fought with the family for the next 8 months while I jumped through hoops. I did all the testing that was required to get this surgery. I saw a psychologist for the first time. I did
Finally.
all Yeah, finally. I did all of the things you're supposed to do. And by the time
But
the surgery
how did you pass with the psychologist?
Yes, I told you I'm a really good actress. We didn't talk about the accident. We
Yeah.
didn't talk about Shannon or losing the other. We didn't talk about any.
That's the scary thing with some of these things that require a psychology sign off.
Yeah.
I know from different reasons, but I know sometimes they're just like, okay, what do I need to get to the bottom of? And it's just kind of this checklist of questions and boop, okay, you're done. Okay.
The family fought with me right up until the last moment. I lost 30 pounds before I went in for the surgery.
Okay.
The surgery was going to be 1 week in the hospital, 2 weeks at home. For that week in the hospital, they were going to put a tube up my nose when they got ready to do the surgery, and they would put a tube in my side that I would feed through. And you could have nothing by mouth for those 3 weeks. And at the end of the 3 weeks, they would take out the J tube and you would go back to eating in this new way where you can only have so much.
Yeah.
Fine. I was down with this. Absolutely. I had to arrange a housekeeper for the children, rearrange everything in our lives for this. This was no small thing. It was important to me. And when I got to the hospital, they decided they were going to do what they call a central line. Well, right off the bat, they had a problem because I am one in 600,000 people where my clavicle and the bone under it don't have any leeway. They're almost stuck together.
Is that from the accident or?
No, it's just some people are just born that way. It's not as big of a cavity, so it's hard to put in a central line. The next morning, they took me to surgery, and in all honesty, we will never know what actually happened in that surgery. The doctor, he made 3 different OR reports, and they are all substantially different. They say very, very odd things. I only know what they say because we ended up 12 years later having to go to court.
Uh-huh.
1 week goes by. I go home for 17 hours. And when I was leaving the hospital the first time, the young nurse kept marking down that she wasn't sure why, but I had a fever. And I had a pain in my shoulder blade, which was weird. Now, I've gone through this accident. I've had a ludicrous amount of pharmaceutical, but I'm doing this. I'm going to martyr myself for my family because they didn't want it. I'm not going to take anything for pain. I'll be fine. I figured I had to pay for doing this. By the time I got home, I could neither sit nor stand nor lie down. And after 17 hours, my husband called the hospital saying we'd have to come to emergency because I had nothing for pain and this pain was getting worse.
Mhm.
Nobody knew anything about this surgery except the doctor that was doing it. So they weren't quite sure what to do in Emerge. And the doctor said, okay, it's really obvious to me. You have a fever of 103. I don't know what's going on there, but you are obviously in pain. I'm going to give you a shot and I'm going to give a prescription to your husband that he can crush up and put in your J2. And that should take care of it. Like, perfect. I said, okay, can I? He said, yeah, go get dressed and you'll be able to leave. I'll come back with the prescription. So I got the shot. He goes off. I go to get dressed. As I opened the curtain, there was a doctor coming through the emergency. My husband was sitting on a chair, I guess just outside of the curtain. And he said, the look on this young doctor's face, he didn't know what was wrong, but he knew it wasn't good.
Mm.
And the doctor said, what are you doing here? I said, oh, it's okay. I'm just on my way home. And he immediately turned and I guess went to get the doctor that had seen me. 5 minutes go by and the doctor that saw me came back and said, I'm really sorry. You can't leave. Like, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm dressed. I'm good. I'm going home. It's like, no, actually, they want to do some tests. Who is they? It's like, what do you mean? And the doctor who was already talking to my husband, not telling him anything because they didn't do that back then, just saying, oh, we're going to do some tests while she's here.
Yeah.
And when they got me to x-ray, the doctor who did my surgery came in. I was lying on a gurney and he came up and he said, so what did you eat or drink? Come on, tell me. I know it was something. And I thought, what are you talking about? Okay, I've almost been like absolutely pushed away all my family. Okay, I've alienated everybody that I know to do this. Why would I chance ruining it before it's even had a chance to take? It didn't make sense to me.
Mhm.
I now know the word gaslighting. Learned that later. That makes me really angry when people do that.
Yeah.
The next morning, I guess it was about 6 o'clock when they took me to surgery. Again, this is going to sound like a chorus to a sad song. We'll never know what happened in that surgery because there were a couple, I think there's only 2 in this case, OR reports. What we do know is he didn't really do anything. There's stuff in our body called omentum, and he used it to wrap the pouch. What had happened in the first surgery, they use a machine to cut the holes in the stomach, and they have to line up to make 2 circles, perfectly round circles. And the machine not only makes the circles, but it staples them.
Mhm.
Whoever was holding it couldn't have been doing it right because one of the sides was an ovoid, not a circle. So it left a leak.
Mm.
He didn't bother doing a test when he was told that that had happened. He just took it upon himself to manually sew that piece.
Gosh.
He never did test it, and we now know it was not. It did not work. So I had this other surgery. I wake up in another room. They've now put me in a palliative care ward with 3 people that were dying. I was 27 years old. Within a day and a half, all 3 people in the room died. I figured I was next. This was not what I had signed up for.
Mhm.
I felt so guilty for my family that I had done this to us. Jump ahead. That was 6 days later. Another week goes by. On day 3, my left lung collapsed. I had developed an abscess. They had to put in a chest tube. They got my husband to hold me over the tray table so that they could cut a hole in my back and said it's not going to take very long, so they didn't freeze me. All of these things, it's a teaching hospital, so a lot of the young doctors are very blasé. They don't understand we're not just meat. We have feelings. And when you cut us, it hurt.
I've been there.
Yeah. Okay. Then you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I had to have a lung tap at a teaching hospital. And before they did it, I even asked, I said, can I just have the doctor do it? I don't want a trainee. I don't want somebody that's training to. And they're like, well, it's a teaching hospital. We have to allow that for them. And I mean, they basically told me no. And I don't even know if legally that's true, that I had to be
not.
denied that. But it was denied. And so he goes in and he just kept stabbing me in the rib over and over and was like, I don't know why I'm not getting it. I just keep hitting rib. He wasn't getting into my lung. And it was just like rib, rib, rib. So eventually, I get the
Yeah.
doctor. But yeah.
Yeah. And sadly, it happens more than we think
Mm.
because a lot of them have never been a patient, so they don't know what it feels like. Anyway, it's now my daughter's birthday. She's going to be 9. And my parents were going to take her out for dinner because my husband couldn't. Because first thing that morning, they had wheeled me in for some other swallow test. And when they finished, they came out and said, you have to sign papers. We have to take you back to the OR. And I said, no, sorry, no, I'm done. Like, no, you don't understand. And the doctor who did all this came by and said, just sign the damn paper. You're going to be dead by supper time if you don't.
Oh my God.
It was a very kind and feeling man. I got the nurse to bring me a phone. I phoned my husband and I phoned my father. And I said, if either one of you signs that paper, I will never talk to you again. And my father told my husband I was absolutely right because I'd be dead. So they were both going to sign it. And I was taken to surgery sometime in the afternoon. My husband waited at the hospital while my parents took my daughter out, which they found really hard because they didn't want her to know what they were waiting for. I don't know the exact order, but shortly after getting into the OR, when they started to cut, either my heart stopped first or my lung quit breathing, one of them.
Mhm.
At that point, the doctor, who we now know, was being investigated because he'd already killed 2 people. And this surgery, there was only a cohort of 37 people. So 35 were alive, and I was on my way out.
Mm.
I guess it opened up a new vista for him because he went in and started taking everything apart. Some of the residents, I guess, were working on either my heart or my lungs and got me restarted, which I suppose he was not thrilled with. And he had to stop taking things apart. I don't know again what happened next, what he did, but when either my heart or my lungs stopped the next time, he went back to tearing things down and taking it all apart. If you open the human body too often and you keep like pulling at it and stitching and restitching, eventually the tissue becomes what they call friable. So they couldn't close me. Somewhere after they got my heart restarted or my lungs the second time, he got this bright idea to call in another surgeon. And this was a thoracic surgeon. And he got him to slit my throat and divert my esophagus out my neck.
My gosh.
That's exactly what it sounds like. Okay. I have had doctors go, I'm sorry, what did you say? Because they've never heard it. That's what he had this guy do. And then he tried
Are
to.
we sure he was a doctor? This is crazy.
Yeah, that's a very good one.
This comes.
The ICU nurses, many, many years later, told me they called him Dr. Nick because he nicked everything he touched.
Oh, gosh.
Anyway, make the rest of this as quick as I can. He had to pack me. They couldn't close me.
Okay.
So I was taken to ICU, basically wide open, with what they call Macaulay bridges, kind of holding the sides kind of together. I had so many machines coming out of me. They look like hand grenades. They're called Jackson Pratts, and they're drains. And then I had a big hose coming out my right side. He was with me for over 7 months. So I ended up calling him Hugo because you go where I go. And did. And the ones on the other side, they had to actually bring in gravity machines to hook them up to because there weren't enough spaces on the wall in ICU, which is saying a lot. They ended up having to put a hose, an air hose, in my neck where the hole was because the saliva was eating my skin. It seems these doctors didn't realize that saliva is like battery acid. So I was blistering and bubbling here. I was 11 days in ICU.
Let me just say, you clearly are so meant to be here.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess that's the upshot of that. My poor mother, who cannot handle a drop of blood from anyone she knows and loves, had to sit beside me, open like that. And like you, I had a young student come in who wanted to do blood gas. Do you know what that is?
Blood gases?
Yeah, it's from the artery near your wrist. He stuck the needle in and it went boing. But that's not supposed to happen. Get away from me. Needless to say, I was not a happy camper in there.
Oh, man.
They ended up taking me to a ward after those 11 days. And one of the nurses realized that I was going to have to end up with more plastic surgery because there was all this blisters and cuts and it was getting infected and it was such a mess. And she ended up calling in the stoma therapist. This is someone who does colostomy bags and things for people that have lost part of their bowel. People look at me like, why would you get a colostomy? But the colostomy bag was here. It was put on my neck so that anything, sorry, gross, but anything that drained would end up in the bag.
Yeah.
And that led to nurses sneaking me in popsicles at night and a few nice things because they knew I was a person.
Oh, my gosh.
And I finally got home just before Christmas. That was from the 12th of September. And I was unable to eat. I had to put things through the J tube.
Yeah.
My mother and father, God rest them both, they wanted me to feel like part of the family. And so on Christmas Day, they were going to have us over and take me out of my bedroom and take me to their house. And my mother said, yeah, we'll just put a little turkey and gravy and stuff in the blender. And then, you won't. That's so rude, Mom. Everybody else at the table, I don't want to make people sick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, life went on because life does. And unfortunately, the J tube in my side, I kept for 18 months. It was over a year when the emergency room head doctor said, you know what? I can't do this one more time. Every couple of weeks, the J tube, what they call a stopcock, would fall out. And so they'd have to cut me open and insert a new tube. And that happened once or twice a month.
Gosh.
But over a year, that's a lot of cutting you open.
Mhm.
Okay. And after 13 months, he said, you know what? Okay, we're just going to put you on Ensure, the protein drink,
Yeah.
because we can't keep cutting you open.
Mhm.
You're going to have no bowel left. They're going to have to take that out too. So that's what we did. I lived on Ensure for over 10 years.
Oh my gosh. That's all you consumed?
Yeah, it's all I could because I couldn't swallow. When they put my neck back together, which was 7 months later, there was a lot of scar tissue had built up.
Okay.
I couldn't swallow.
This was
they
hard.
put- Um, better. I whoop like a crane because water gets stuck in the pouch in my neck. Very attractive.
Okay.
Um,
Oh my goodness.
anyway, this just kept going. There was always something else.
Right.
So with my neck, they use these things that look like giant bullets. It's an operation, but it's minimal. They go in and they make them bigger and bigger to try and stretch your esophagus again.
Mhm.
Because your body does try to heal.
Yeah.
No matter what happens to it, it will try to heal.
Yeah.
Anyway, life went on, and I was not a happy camper, which makes sense. I kept going in and out of the hospital. The falling and breaking parts of me got much, much worse. And in 2001, I tripped on my cane getting out of the car, and I hit the wheel well next to me, and my arm shattered in about 60 pieces.
Wow.
That's when we found out that I had osteoporosis.
Okay.
So now I have a big titanium rod in my arm, which makes me bionic.
Mhm.
And I met an incredible orthopedic surgeon who restored my faith.
Finally.
And doctors, yeah, because over that time, it seemed every year I got other gifts thanks to this doctor. I got hepatitis C for Christmas, and
For Christmas. Hepatitis C for
well,
Christmas.
yeah, and in 2003, I got diabetes, but like type 1, I am insulin dependent.
Okay. Was this
So
for Valentine's Day, the sugar
no,
high?
that was Christmas too. A lot of them were for Christmas.
Okay.
I guess Santa thought I was bad.
Yeah.
Anyway,
No coal for you. Just
we found out that he actually cut the vagus nerve,
ah.
which is why there was so much other issues. I have no motility in my stomach, and that sort of translated. I had, well, knock on wood, my latest surgery in October that just passed to remove a giant hernia from where my J tube was.
Yeah.
I developed what looked like a football, so I called him Fred,
Yeah.
and Fred is now gone.
Nice.
Anyway, back to the story in more chronological order. I'm going to give you the aha, big
Yeah.
good piece.
Yeah.
So in 1997, we were at a restaurant. My daughter and my first grandchild had come for a visit, and we took my son, who was in Air Cadets, out for an early dinner so that we could take him to Air Cadets. When we left the restaurant, we were walking through the parking lot, and there was a car parked as we're going by. He starts backing up, but he's looking the other way. So I knocked on the back of the car, like, hello, are there people here? There's a little kid.
Yeah.
He was 3. And he jerked to a stop, and then we kept walking. And the next thing we know, this giant barrels out of his car, and he's screaming at it. We're still walking. He's screaming at us, "You effing bitch, can't you wait? What's wrong with that? That, that?" And he's just berating us. He was almost foaming at the mouth. Like, it was unbelievable.
Hmm.
My daughter said, like, "What is wrong with you? There's a child here." I said, "You're nuts." And
Yeah.
so we kept walking. He got back in his car, and my daughter was putting the little one in the car. My son was, I think, getting in the other side. I'm not quite sure where everybody was, but my daughter screamed. I looked up, and he was right there, and he turned his car in like he was going to hit my kids. So I got in the way, and he ended up backing out with me on the hood of his car.
Oh my God.
He had hit my legs, which isn't a good thing. Because they were not in very good shape. And everybody in the parking lot gathered around his car and wouldn't let him go any farther. I don't know where he thought he was going. And it was in a parking lot, so he wasn't doing any more than 15 miles an hour.
Yeah.
When they called the ambulance, it just so happens my doctor is in that plaza.
Mm-hmm.
And someone went to get the doctor not knowing, but he's walking along and he was, oh my God, no, no, no. Please tell me he didn't hit her leg. He was
Yeah.
expecting the worst.
Yeah.
And when the ambulance got there, because he'd taken everything apart, within 20 days of me having it, I didn't really have a vertical banded gastroplasty. I had nothing, but I didn't know that. I didn't find that out for 12 years. So I had put on weight. And again, I hated.
Mhm.
So when the paramedics came, there was no way I was going to let these poor people suffer and have to pick me up. It's such a vanity thing. It's awful. But as I fought with them to try and help myself onto this stretcher,
Mm-hmm.
I suddenly had this aha moment. Like, okay, there has to be more to life than just can't just be crap, 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 crap. This is crazy. There
Mm-hmm.
has to be a common denominator.
Mm-hmm.
And it's you. Okay. And I'm sitting in the ambulance and one of the paramedics said, it was so bizarre. All of a sudden you just started smiling. And he said, like, are you okay? I said, oh, yeah, yeah. I'm thinking, oh my God, it's me. Well, there's got to be more, and I'm going to find. So I started watching more Oprah. I found the ninth insight. I got the 4 agreements. I went to the library and just went nuts. By 2004, I had a spiritual advisor. My son finally nicknamed her the holistic missile because she cut right to the meat of things.
Yeah.
And I understood. Okay, number 1, I'm no victim.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I run the ship, and if I'm going to run it right, then I have to get off my duff and stop whining.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I did. In 2019, I started working with a soul coach in France. And by then, I was a pharmaceutical junkie. I was taking enough hard narcotics for a football team, and it was just keeping me upright.
Yeah.
I have pain every single day of my life. I have pain 24/7, and I get that. But I now have meditations I can use and visualization. And when you are intent on gratitude and joy, you can kind of shove that stuff to the side. And so in 2020, I don't know exactly what the hell happened. And I started changing and losing weight and being much more present in what I did because I'd now spent more than 10 years being grateful for every moment.
Mm-hmm. So, Elaine, can you tell us then, your life gave you crap after crap after crap. And it sounds like you woke up to understanding why this was happening, right? And I think that's a big piece that people need to connect in their lives when they're struggling and trying to understand, well, why does this keep happening? Because it's something that just keeps happening and happening and happening. Now, there's certain things that will continue to happen because
Oh, yeah.
they're inevitable, right? Like you have maintenance stuff with your health, like that's inevitable. But there's a mindset piece to making all the other parts of your life run smoothly instead of it's not just the health, it's this, it's that.
Well, we talked about this very early on about if you go in with a negative mind,
Mm-hmm.
if you start the day being negative, then that's what you're going to attract.
But why? But looking back, do
Yeah.
you see and do you understand, like, okay, this just kept happening because I needed to wake up?
there were life lessons in all of those,
Mhm.
okay, being trusting and all kinds of life lessons that I learned. And one thing I have to go back to is the policeman. No, he didn't do the right thing, but I know why now. Because my eldest granddaughter, the one that the big bad man went after,
Mhm.
her and I went to a zombie fest. And in a maze with zombies, I sacrificed her. I put her in front of me when there was a zombie butcher coming at me, knowing full well in my head that that's not real. What in hell am I doing? And she's saying, Grandma, what are you doing? It's like, "No." But fear takes over
Mhm.
and makes us try to survive
Mhm.
because our lizard brain has one job: keep you alive, status quo.
Mhm.
Everything I believe in and everything I say is to hell with status quo. You have to step out of your comfort zone to learn to appreciate all the good. And it doesn't mean that bad things don't happen, because trust me, they do.
Mhm.
And it's a matter of, I guess, weighing your odds, but every single day for 2 decades now, I am grateful for at least 5 things, okay?
So how do we feel about the policeman today?
Well, here's the thing. His lizard brain took over to make him survive. He didn't intentionally leave me there, but I believe he didn't come to the hospital. He
Mhm.
didn't say anything after because he felt so bad.
And embarrassed, I'm sure.
Exactly, exactly. And
I
also, his police force was being sued, so
I I
it's
yeah.
part of it.
I mean, what you said something very important, though. He didn't intentionally do that. Like,
Exactly.
he didn't want you to get hit. That it just some people, their brains just operate differently,
Yep.
and some people immediately will think about themselves, and that's no fault to them, and some people will immediately think about somebody else and how they can protect that other person, and some people will immediately be thinking about both simultaneously.
And
But
yeah, and you get caught betwixt and between because you can't do everything, and that makes a lot of people just freeze.
and then that too, right? There's also those moments that I freak out, I don't know what to do, there's so much adrenaline pumping,
Oh
your
my
heart's
god, yeah.
racing, you're not thinking clearly, and you have to think very instantaneously in those moments, and that's
Yeah.
really hard. And so I think it is important that we try not to place too much blame on people unless if it's intentional, then sure, like, you can blame them and be mad about it, but don't hold the anger because that's not gonna serve you well
Well,
anyway.
the only one you're hurting is you.
Yeah.
I have forgiven the doctor because it's better for me. You have to also think about yourself in this,
Mhm.
and in forgiving the policeman, I was eventually able to understand I had to forgive me
Mhm.
for putting myself in that position.
Mhm.
Because at 7 months pregnant, I should not have gone out at 2 o'clock in the morning to pick up anybody.
Yeah.
And that was a hard lesson. But
Mhm.
when you take the lessons, hallelujah, you don't have to do them over again. I used to say, God, the universe, whatever, when they're trying to get something through to you, some people they hit with bricks. In my case, it's automobiles.
Yeah. Well, and that's where I think that things just keep happening and happening because there is something that you are meant to
Yeah.
do for sure. So, well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I think a lot of people will find a lot of value in this. And one of the things I think is very valuable too is understanding generationally. There's a lot of people that can't understand why their parents did what they did, or but the resources that we have now are so vastly different.
Oh my
And so the
God.
behaviors of people have changed dramatically because we have more exposure now more than ever to human behavior and understanding it. And so people can have so much more self growth than they ever could. And so we can't place blame on the things that parents, grandparents, great grandparents, people might have
Yeah.
done.
Maya Angelou said it best. When we know better, we do better.
Mhm.
And our grandparents, my parents as children lived through the war. Our grandparents lived through the war. They had other concerns,
Mm.
other things that came first in their lives. And it's hard to change that for like Gen Zs now. Gen Zs are smart little cookies. They have a much better handle on global concerns and body positivity and
Yeah.
all kinds of things that, oh my God, I wish my generation had.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think it bodes well
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you. And if I can leave your audience with one thing, make the most of your today.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, where can people find you if they want to find you?
I'm pretty easy to find online, ElaineLindsay.com.
Okay.
If you just look in search, I'm at the corner of search and social. You can find me at Suicide Zen Forgiveness, and I go by the handle The Dark Pollyanna.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.